Most preppers and homesteaders just go out and buy gear and equipment and hope for the best. I'm going to show you a tool used by engineers ranging from the aerospace industry to just about any manufacturing industry, and how you can use this tool on all aspects of your homestead. This is one of those not sexy like a new tractor or a new bug out bag, but this is the real deal failure analysis study for your homestead or your prepping that is a game changer. And my background on this, I was a project engineer before I retired for a global manufacturing company. This was my bread and butter. This is what I got paid to do. I'm going to go over a very simplified version of this that I use every day on the homestead, every single day. And it's one of those things, it's a living document. You will keep updating this. And I'm going to put a download link for free. You can download a PDF copy of this. And this is a very simplified version. Let's get into that right now. PFMEA stands for Process Failure Mode Effects and Analysis. Kind of nerdy topic, kind of a nerdy subject. People used to hate going to my meetings when I would have them, but it was an essential part of all process functions within a company. And it is vital on a homestead. It is a very useful and cheap prep. It's going to cost you some time, a pen, and paper. Preparing a process failure mode and effects analysis, PFMEA, for homesteading or prepping involves systematically identifying potential failures in your self-sufficiency systems, and that includes water, food, power, defense, literally every critical aspect of your homestead you could use this tool on. The key steps include assessing risks like equipment failure or supply chain disruptions, and determining severity occurrence and creating contingency plans. Start by mapping out critical processes such as canning, solar power, water, animal health, food storage. Any of these topics on your homestead or prepping can be implemented into this tool. Let's get into water management. I will use this as an example. You could use any topic like I stated on your homestead, but we're going to go over water because water is life and water is critical on the homestead. So the main topic is you need water. We're going to get some wind here. What are the failure modes? You could have, the pump could fail. If your pump is electric, you could have a severe storm like this and a tree could fall and knock out the power lines, and then your pump will fail. You could also have contamination, drought. Then you would want to rank the severity. 10 would be the highest critical. In manufacturing, that usually meant like critical as in a death, such as if a tire blows up on a car on the highway, somebody could die. On a homestead, if your water system fails, you and your animals could die. The next thing you want to do is have a solution to combat that problem. Sometimes it's okay not to have a plan. And then put that in there, what you're thinking of doing. But you could put in there, solar backup pump. If you don't have rain catchment, you could add rain catchment. You could add water filtration. The list goes on. At my previous job, I literally got paid to think of any kind of hypothetical and potential problem that could happen on any of our product line. And it could be broken down so far, you could have it go down to literally on the supply chain side of it, the truck driver bringing in your goods didn't pay attention to the radio, therefore got in a traffic jam, therefore the product was delayed. Keeps going and going. You could break it down very small. You don't need to do this on the homestead. You need just a simple, basic outline, and we're going to go over that right now. Let's go over this PFMEA that I have on the screen right now. Starting from top left, we have process step. Process step could be anything such as, water supply, milking, gardening, root cellar storage, heating, cooling. You break it down. The next would be your potential failure mode. And for each process step, you could have more than one failure mode as shown here. So for water supply, our failure modes are your well pump. Your well pump can fail. Your water storage. We didn't really need to add failure on there. We could just put water storage, keep some continuity in this document. Water quality, water taste. And when I say water quality, that would be more as color, contamination, something that could get you sick. And then we have water taste. The next would be potential effect and your severity. So as you can see, we have the well pump, loss of potable water. That would be a 10. Water is life. Without water, things are not good for the people and livestock on a homestead, especially if it's off-grid and there's no other ways to get water. Water storage failure, same thing. If you have a cistern, you have loss of potable water for humans and livestock, it's the same severity. Then we have water quality. Sickness from potable water for humans and livestock. That would be as an 8 because you're not going to die, but things are still not good. And being sick from waterborne issues is no fun. And then we have water taste. I put a 4. It could be lower. It's more of an inconvenience. The water tastes bad. If anybody's ever stored water in plastic bottles, they know what you mean when the water starts tasting like plastic. It's an inconvenience, but you could still filter it and still drink it. The next to the right would be potential cause. So this you could have for each of your failure modes or your effects. And these are one of those items that for each potential failure, you could have multiple potential causes. So the well pump, I put on there for potential cause, failure or drought. You could go as complex as failure from power outage, failure from pump malfunctioning, failure from pump drying out, and then just break it down even more detailed, such as that. Same thing with water storage failure, failure or drought. It could be, failure from storage infrastructure breakdown, failure from all sorts of other things. And then we're going to have your actionable prevention. This is where you come up with the solution for the failure and the potential causes. This you could have multiple actionable preventions also, and these could be from something you're planning on doing, in the process of doing, or theoretical, and you don't know if it's going to work, but you someday plan on doing this. In this simple form, as I stated before, this is a living document, so you need to audit your PFMEA, quarterly, monthly, yearly, whatever you think is good for your situation, and you can update as stated. And I'm going to add one more in here just to kind of give you an example. I put root cellar storage. This one, we could put the potential failures would be temperature drops below freezing. Humidity is too low. We could also add too high, because if it's too high, you could get rusting in there. You could just get mold, a delicate dance to have the right humidity in a root cellar. And then you could have pests enter, mice, rats, bugs. If you've ever had weevils in dry goods, you kind of know that bugs can ruin a lot of food quickly. And then you still have your severities, 1 through 10, and you can rank that. And then your potential causes. So you could have inadequate for cellar temperature. You could have inadequate insulation, improper sealing of the door, not deep enough. And then for humidity, concrete floors absorb moisture, insufficient earth contact. And then for your prevention, for the temperature, you could install heat sink, barrels of water, more mass that will hold temperature in there. You could do a digital temperature monitor. You could also add a double door. The list is endless. This is one of those things that I recently had to update, and I'm constantly adding to mine. Like I said, it is a living document, and I'm constantly adding to mine for various things. And I just had a couple failures. One of them was recently on the show. I did a shoot with a friend down by the river, and I brought my second mic. And as you can see, the mic has the little fur ball on it. That fur ball helps soften the sound of the wind. I forgot my second fur ball. So now my checklist for my camera equipment, I have a checklist now to make sure I have, spare batteries, this, that, and extra fur balls. There's an industry name for them, but I really don't know what it is, and I just call it the fur ball. So we'll just use fur ball. And another one I recently went shooting to re-zero in some of my defensive SHTF rifles. And one of them, in my mind, I had just used that rifle, and we brought it there to the range, and I went to rack. It was an AR-15 that was suppressed. I went to rack back, and I physically could not rack it. And then the person that I was shooting with was worried that there was a round stuck in there, and I assured him there wasn't, because I would never do that. But then I started second-guessing myself. It turned out from shooting suppressed, there was so much carbon in there that could not open it anymore. It was physically, we had to spray cleaner in there, and it took us a while. And this is for the defense on the Homestead. That was kind of a bad blow to me, because this could have been something I needed that rifle, grabbed it, and it just physically would not function. So now I have a maintenance added in my PFMEA for firearms that I use and don't use, just to make sure that they are still functional and clean. So this is one of those things you could just use for every single thing on the Homestead. This building has so many failure modes. It's its own huge document. But as stated, this is one of those unsexy, it's not a cool new Homestead implement. It's not a new bug out bag accessory. It is a very useful tool that really does not cost anything, minus your time and critical thinking. So hopefully this was helpful, because I do not see a lot of people talking about this. And this is one of those items that I use all the time. And I didn't really want to talk about it because I figured it was too nerdy. And then I realized that I simplified it for myself, because it wasn't the funnest document to always work on, but a simplified version is very useful and very easy to use and not that time consuming. So hopefully this is helpful, and this is one of those things. Like I said, it is a living document. So I used to, at my previous jobs, set up in my Google Docs and whatever, my calendar, little triggers that would pop up and say, reevaluate, blah, blah, PFMEA. I do the same thing now. So I'll have in there, reevaluate storm shelter PFMEA, reevaluate solar system PFMEA. I have literally a PFMEA for each individual component of the Homestead, and then I just have some general ones, and I keep them lumped together. I used to do them in Microsoft Excel. Now I'm on a Mac, so I use numbers. The free download that is included on here, it is just a PDF copy, but you could copy that information and put it into your spreadsheet of choice and make it a much easier document. And if you really want to deep dive into it, you could Google search and find hefty duty, higher quality PFMEAs that are used in like manufacturing and design, and they will have the calculators. So when you add, they call it risk priority number, you rank your failure, and it's very complex, but it will give you a risk priority number, and certain numbers, it kind of takes it's more than I want to go into this show, because there used to be PFMEA classes and things like that, and most people hated them, fell asleep in them, and just thought it was the driest subject. But if you're interested in, I used to love them. If you're interested in, either reach out to me, I've got copies, look on the Google, you could find them, but this simplified one is much easier to use, and in my mind, just as effective. It does the core function of the PFMEA. So hopefully this was helpful, and until next time, thanks again, preppers, homesteaders, and prepper-steaders. Thanks. Till next time, bye. Big camera. I'm still waiting for the temperature in my water to be perfect. It's still warming up. I'm gonna end it there. Thanks. Like and subscribe. I gotta support this shirt because it was a gift. I love it. I do. So thanks again. Bye.